Welcome back to Drum Corps Show Design 101. So far in the series, we've discussed the elusive behind-the-scenes principles that guide the show development process. These are time-honored principles of aesthetics handed down from the ancient Greeks and are still in use today in all the professional performing arts worldwide. Professional producers and artistic directors use these common-sense principles to help make their shows accessible and meaningful. When a drum corps designer ignores these principles, you get a confused audience and a low score. Principles of show design apply to every professional performing art, from Don Giovanni to dance moms. And no, drum corps isn't a different animal. That's what lazy designers say when they haven't done the work. In this series, we've covered 4 of the 5 main requirements for a drum corps show of substance: cohesion, universality, uniqueness, and authenticity. We've also covered supplemental topics like endings, accessibility, and subject versus theme. Now, in this episode, we'll discuss dramatic action.
Dramatic action is the central motion in your show, provided by the drill, or the story, or any visual pattern that grows and builds for dramatic effect.
Action provides the central point of visual focus. Action is the show element that differentiates drum corps shows from sit-down concert, which have no visual elements and often have no focused meaning at all. There are 3 main questions for drum corps designers to ask themselves. These questions are common in all professional arts. 1. What is my show subject? Bluecoats chose entropy, for example. 2. What is my show theme? Bluecoats chose the theme that systems naturally devolve, but simultaneously create beauty and emotion. And 3. How do I design the action to reflect that theme? Bluecoats created a physical platform that disintegrates during the show, creating continual visual change. It's a metaphor for entropy.
When your action is clear, the audience understands the artistic purpose of the show.
Here are some guidelines for selecting the action for your show. The action should integrate with the music and selected theme. The action in your show should grow and build and resolve by the end. The action should be logical and accessible. And the action should be fun to watch. The action should be edited in proportion for outdoor pageant-style productions. Finally, the action should be unique to this show and no other. Let's look at some 2024 shows that had a lack of a clear dramatic action. These show designs lacked logic, engagement, or higher purpose. You can see how the design planning affected their scores and the audience reaction. In 16th place, The Spirit of Atlanta chose the subject of creatures from French artist Lily Wood's illustrations on an album cover. In the show, these illustrated characters are animated by performers in fabulous costumes. They introduce themselves one after another. And then, nothing. The characters don't do anything. There's no character interaction. There's no interacting with the environment as the preseason description promised. In fact, we don't know who they are, where they are, or what their objective is. At the end, they assemble for a final pose, and everyone in the audience sits confused. This is a classic example of a show with no action. Action score: 3.0 out of 10. Madison Scouts 2024 Mosaic featured pieces of a mosaic on the field. By the end, the pieces lined up along the front sideline. But why? What is the purpose of the mosaic? What was the artistic intent? Why were the mosaic pieces all the same? Why did they look like stylized, shiny elements from 1970s TV? How is the end different from the beginning? They moved the pieces around in various formations, but for no specific reason or result. That's called a push and pose show. This show didn't meet professional standards for a clear dramatic action with purpose. Action score: 4.0 out of 10. The Cavaliers' show Beneath the Armor had overlapping themes that made the show unclear. Revealing what's underneath the armor, revealing personal truths, and becoming a superhero all competed for the central focus. By the end, the color guard presented flags with their own faces on them. But in finals, the panels with their futuristic faces were removed for clarity. An optical eye theme was substituted last minute. The dramatic action was unclear and affected their score and audience reaction. 4.0 out of 10. The Colts 2024 show on fields featured 1970s piece symbols, but music from different eras including the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Preseason press said that the show would reveal their varied personal experiences in the location of fields, but late in the season, this reveal never materialized. There was no appreciable change in the visuals by the end. The central dramatic action was muddled and undefined. 4.5 out of 10. Santa Clara's 2024 show Vagabond featured a central vagabond character of no particular era. The choreographer said the vagabond character interacts with other vagabonds in the color guard, and then interacts with one vagabond in particular. Judges demanded that the vagabond be easier to view, so designers gave him a gold cape and justified it by saying that it was the character's internal shining light, which he gives to another vagabond. That's an embarrassing, reversed-engineered justification for the cape, and the action of transferring a cape makes no logical sense. In the real world, vagabonds are usually more concerned about their next meal or their next performance. The show lacked a clear through-line of action, and the vagabonds seemed to roam around the various drill sets, randomly and without context. At the end, the new vagabond exits off to side 2, but in finals they don't exit fully, and the audience is confused about their objective. The Broadway-quality dancers were expected to carry the entire burden of action in a show that made no logical sense to begin with. In the Marching Arts podcast, the designers tried to justify the lack of action, saying that they had no props. But not having props is not an excuse not to have a simple, clear dramatic action. Last minute, the choreographers were burdened with providing some progression of story points, but the story points were not supported by the drill or music, and were without literary or historical reference, and were indecipherable to audience members who try to translate the choreographed moments. This show design lacked a planned action in the design phase, and as a result the show lacked audience engagement and higher purpose. Action score 5.0 out of 10. Carolina Crown's Promethean featured the complex story of Prometheus creating humans from clay, then giving humans the gift of fire, and thereby angering the other gods who never appeared, and then being captured by them. Then Prometheus is incarcerated with chains. Then Prometheus has his liver plucked out by birds sent by the other angry gods. All in 11 minutes. Any director in the professional arts learns to edit story points to fit the length of the production. Crown staging was unclear and failed to deliver the logic underneath the story of a wayward god helping mankind and the unexpected consequences. By the end, the audience was confused about Prometheus' actions, his objective, and his purpose. The audience grew silent. Action score 5.5 out of 10. Now let's detail some 2024 shows that had a clear action. The Blue Devils introduced the age of romanticism. At the beginning, black capes are thrown off to reveal bright, passionate colors underneath. And by the end, the closets break apart to reveal the passionate art and emotion within. Action score 8.0 out of 10. Mandarins presented a clear action in their show about the era of New Orleans jazz. At the beginning, the musicians magically appear, as if from a dream. Then at the end, the musicians disappear almost as quickly as they started. Was it all an illusion? Action score 8.0 out of 10. The Troopers 2024 show featured a devil guitarist who hypnotizes humans with salacious melodies and almost becomes a protagonist in doing so. By the end, a trooper saves humankind from temptation by spiking the devil with a stake through the heart. Evil is dead, but so is his damn good music. Action score 9 out of 10. The progression of action in each example is clear. Cabinets open. Musicians magically appear. The devil is dead. When the action is clear, the audience reaction is profound. In January, before the season starts, drum corps designers will be required to tell the marching members what the central visual dramatic action is in the show and how it changes by the end. A clear dramatic action helps the audience buy into the show.
The audience can focus on a main topic. The audience can watch how the sequence heightens. The audience can guess what happens next. And the audience can invest in the ending and reward you when it guesses right.
Remember, marchers, ask your designers what the central dramatic action is in your show and how it changes by the end. If the designer can't tell you what the dramatic action is, beware. Ask them if you can help find one. Because without a central visual action that changes by the end, your score will be decimated. Your score will reflect the lack of visual focus in general effect, visual effect, music analysis, and color guard. Remember, designers, you must create a show with meaning and a progression of action. Those elements are the very minimum to reach a professional standard. Dramatic action is key, not just in drum corps, but in all the professional arts. Music videos, film, television, advertisements, museum exhibitions, opera, ballet, large-scale rock concerts, and even bus and truck tours of Barney the Musical. All professional productions have a central dramatic action that's logical, engaging, and with a clear purpose, even if there's no story. Remember, if you say it doesn't matter what the meaning of the show was, just enjoy the music, you are not meeting basic professional standards. Professional shows have a clear logic, audience engagement, and a higher purpose. Don't settle for anything less.